welcome to All Steelers Talk, your home for everything Pittsburgh Steelers, presented by allsteelers.com.
What's going on, everybody? How we doing? Night 2 NFL draft, the best night of draft weekend, in my opinion. Happy that all you guys are back joining with us. Hopefully, we get another Zachary Smith prediction here in round 2, like we did in round 1. Nick, Zach, appreciate you guys for jumping on with me again. How you guys doing? How we feeling?
I'm feeling great, man. Leaving day 1 with an offensive tackle. Now we get to look at corner, which is a much deeper position, and then they have their pick of the litter. Obviously, with Branch, it's as slot, and then Joey Porter's an outside, and they also have the possibility to trade down, accumulate picks. Like, there's so many ways they can win this day, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think, Derek, you said it best. This is the best night of the draft. We agree on that. Night 2, rounds 2 and 3. We've always enjoyed a little bit more than round 1. We've talked about that ad nauseum, I feel like, every time that we get together around draft time. But it's really cool to see the Steelers in the driver's seat of night 2. They really control this whole thing right at the top. There were some players that I think we all thought would go in round 1 that didn't. And, the Steelers could sit and pick one of those guys at 32 or move down the board a little bit. Possibilities are endless for them. And like Nick, I'm really excited they left night 1 with a tackle.
Yeah, for sure. I think that, the Steelers are in a really good spot. I think, like you said, being in the driver's seat, man, this is a situation or a position that I would have never in a million years
foreign territory for us.
Yeah, I envisioned them being in this situation. I mean, the Steelers are never bad enough to get, a top 5, top 10 pick. And then to have the number 1 overall pick on night 2 of the draft is, super exciting because it's funny. It worked out exactly how we thought it would, right? Like we talked about since the Claypool trade, how, there's always these couple guys that fall the first round, like it is every year, and it's going to be super exciting. And then, boom, Joey Porter Jr. falls out of the first round. Brian Branch falls out of the first round.
Branch didn't really surprise me, but Porter, that one was a little shocking. I think what happened was when Zay Flowers got taken by the Ravens, because I don't think they expected Flowers to be there. I think they thought the Chargers were going to take him to begin with, and then when Flowers ended up dropping to them, they were just like, all right, well, that takes Porter off the decision.
Yeah. What about the Flowers call to the Ravens? I wanted to get into that really quick before we start getting too many questions in here. But what did y'all think about the Ravens haul last night, and then the Bengals haul as well? Of course, the Browns sat out night 1. But what did you guys think of their picks?
I love Zay Flowers. Oddly enough, he was the only one out of that group of 4 that we saw go in the first round that I didn't mock to them at any point. I put all 3 of them in that spot to the Ravens at some point doing mock drafts. Zay Flowers never, but I love Zay. But I mean, as far as a fit, it's going to be interesting because we haven't seen Todd Monken, working with a Lamar Jackson-led offense yet. So it's going to be interesting to see. But I think it opens up a lot more. I don't think that we can expect that Ravens offense to look how it has, in the past few years as Steelers fans.
How about you, Nick? What would you think about that? What did you think about that one?
Zay Flowers, if just looking at a composite, looking at the numbers of where he was on my board and where they took him, it would seem like a reach, but I like Zay Flowers a lot off the field. I think he is one of the safest players in terms of just pure character, work ethic. He's done so much to transform his body. He's one of the most loyal players. He accepted a Shrine Game invite and stayed with it because he was the first. That was the first All-Star game that invited him, and he stayed at Boston College because of that loyalty to Boston College. And we talk about players like that. They tend to be very high work ethic character, and they tend to take control of a locker room. I think Flowers, that type of player who can do that, and also he can take the top off of defense, similar to a T.Y. Hilton or maybe their next version of Marquise Brown, as a few people have said before. And I think that's a pretty accurate way, honestly, pretty accurate, because they need a guy who can take the top off of defense. Zay Flowers can do that.
Yeah, it was an interesting pick. Like you said, he wasn't a guy that I necessarily thought a ton about for Baltimore. But interesting to see what happens. I'm just going through the comments here.
You mentioned the Bengals one though too. I mean, Miles Murphy,
Yeah.
I think that was a case of just like you got to take the value there in that spot. Like I had Michael Mayer
Didn't think he was
penciled
gonna
in
be
there. Yeah, like Michael Mayer to me seemed like the obvious pick. The fact that he got there, and then when they turned in the card and it was Miles Murphy, a little bit surprised, and I think that's just a case of them taking the value there. You look at their edge players; they got what Hubbard is not a free agent for 2 more seasons. I think Hendrickson is after 1 more. They still have Osai there, obviously, but you can never have enough pass rushes. I think they were just taking the value there.
Definitely see that. Big thing with me with Miles Murphy, I wasn't like the biggest fan overall of his game, but I think this fit makes a lot of sense because they have so many pass rushers in front of him. It gives him time to like sit and learn overall, harness his game a little bit better because like we talk about his hand usage and like his violence as a player. I don't think he consistently plays to that 260-pound frame that he possesses, but in time, I do think he could turn out to be a hell of a steal for the Bengals. That said, it was a reach on my board overall because I just think there's some things he needs to iron out with his game in terms of consistency that could be a bit maddening early on.
Yeah. Wanted to get to Noah's question here. Have you heard any rumors on what they're getting offered? I kind of just envision Omar Khan's phone ringing off the hook for the last, 12 hours. So I'm not really sure about specific offers, but, Will Levis still being on the board, I think helps them a little bit. It does seem like the team, probably put a little bug in Jeremy Fowler's ear about, how many teams are calling them to move up. It's going to be interesting to see if they get something that blows them away. I talked about this on the post draft stream last night. I think it's got to be an offer that really just like someone's paying the tax on it, right? Like even for the Steelers to move back a couple spots, I don't know that they're going to be able to get enough value for me to be like, yeah, let's definitely move down because of who's on the board. If Joey Porter Jr. wasn't on the board or Brian Branch wasn't on the board, I'd say go ahead, like, move back 10 spots, whatever. But I want to make sure, in my opinion, in round 2, I would really be trying to make sure that I come away with like Joey Porter Jr., Brian Branch, or Keanu Benton with this first pick. And I just wouldn't be very comfortable moving down more than, 2-3 spots because I'd want to get one of those guys, I don't know how you guys feel about that.
I completely agree. Like if the Steelers were to move down, they want to make sure they secure one of those 2 guys. If like a team, like the team like the Bears, they apparently are reported to be one of their trade targets. If they were to move down, they would probably be getting 2 second-rounders, so they would be giving up the opportunity to get a guy like a Joey Porter or Keanu Benton or Brian Branch. But, there's a chance corner like a DJ Turner could be there. That could be a good solid, good prize there. But we talk about their needs, and especially how much I want the Steelers to double dip at corner. Losing 120 definitely hurts in that regard because they definitely want to address one of the linebacker spots, whether it be edge or off-ball linebacker, maybe both. Assault two birds with one stone with a guy like Nick Herbig potentially, but there's a lot of ways they can go about this. They definitely probably have high grades on guys in front, so it's definitely a very it's a precarious situation, but it's a good situation to have, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about it is, only giving up 120 in the first round to move up for Broderick Jones here in this spot, kind of holding the cards. Like if somebody really wants to come up and get a player, the fact that you can end up replenishing that pick with something potentially even higher would be crazy. But, to Derek's point, like you're paying a tax on it. Like you can go through those trade value charts and say it's worth this and this, but that doesn't mean that that's all it's going to cost in this scenario when you have this many teams trying to get up to 1 pick. So it will be interesting to see how it plays out. Like you guys, though, with a Joey Porter Jr., with a Brian Branch on the board, I'd have to be blown away with whatever that offer would be and still feel pretty good about where I'm sliding to, that I'm going to get a really good player. Keanu Benton is an interesting one. Derek said hopefully we can get another situation like I'm calling Broderick Jones the other night. I've also said Keanu Benton was a guy that was going to be a Steeler, so we can just stick with that one for night 2. He's going to be a Steeler.
Yeah. Like that call as well. I mean, he's been the guy that I've hammered home really all cycle that just feels like a Steeler, man. I think it's just bound to happen one way or another. Just in terms of, again, man, it's just so tough. It's so tough for me to really consider strongly moving back. Like, it's going to have to be a tax. Do you guys think, and this is just, we'll just throw this kind of crazy scenario out there, but would your opinion on moving back, let's say like 10 spots, right? In the second round, maybe to a team like Tennessee who has 41. Would you feel differently if Tennessee was willing to give up their their second round pick for next year and then a third round pick for this year, something like that? Because I think that Titans pick for next year is definitely going to be like this area. And then if I could get like a second or a third round pick this year as well, like their third round pick for this year, that may be interesting.
So you're saying the only pick you'd be getting this year would be the third, but you get a second next year. Is that what you're saying?
So, well, 2 seconds and a third. I know that's a crazy tax.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like,
yeah, that's what that's why I was like, I mean, yeah. Then that's what I was trying to figure out. I was like, wait, does he mean? Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I think
yes.
I think there's got to be a tax on it, right? Like if you know a team's coming up to get a quarterback, like in this spot, and you like your board, which I can't imagine the Steelers don't like their board right now. I mean, regardless of how high they are or were or weren't on Joey Porter Jr., this is good value. And I think about, Tyreek Stevenson, Keanu Benton, Brian Branch, all these guys. All these guys that
I'm
there.
wondering, like, at what point do we get where Ike Taylor's just making a phone call to Rooney and saying, hey, when are you going to do this?
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe he'll live stream it from his pod. Ike's my guy, though. Yeah, I don't know. Nick, what would be like a over the top offer that you would take to move back out of 32 with the board as it is currently constructed and laid out for them?
I'm honestly looking at the Bears, who are picking at pick 52. They might be wanting to jump the Cardinals for John Michael Schmitz at center. While it be quite a long way down, they have 2 4s and 2 seconds. They have pick 61. That's another way they could recoup a bunch of extra picks. That, like, the Bears make a ton of sense if they're willing to give up that much. As we've seen with Ryan Poles, he gave up quite a bit for Chase Claypool, so they definitely like negotiating with the Bears and Poles. But overall, like, it's a tough decision, but it's a good decision to have because, like I said, they could take a guy they potentially have a first round grade on in a Brian Branch or a Porter, or they move down and try to address all of their needs as opposed to letting one of them go because they don't have as many picks.
Sure. Smitty, how you feel about that? I mean,
it's so tough. I mean, I feel like I've talked ad nauseum where I'm at with Brian Branch in this class, and like the idea that he's still on the board. I can obviously get talked into Joey Porter Jr. too, who I would have had, really no problem with staying at 17 and taking there. But it's there's definitely a way that I could be talked into, like you're saying, with the tax. If you get a crazy trade, even in Nick's scenario, we talked about going down to the Bears in that spot in the second because of everything additionally added on to that pick. I could be okay with that too. Again, it's going to be very hard for the Steelers to upset me, I think, tonight. I'm sure they're going to find a way, but they haven't yet, and there's a lot of ways that they can go that won't.
Yeah, we've talked about some of just the more common names like Porter Jr., Branch, falling out of the first round. Was there anyone else that like surprised you guys? Doesn't necessarily have to be like a Steelers target, but was there anyone else that kind of just set you back a little bit?
I will say I kind of thought we would see another interior guy like an Osiris Torrance maybe go at the back end of the first. I had him mocked in there. I don't know. I guess I was also kind of thrown off the scent with Keon White being at the draft that he would go. Not that he was a guarantee to.
Yeah, but still invited to the draft. A little bit definitely different.
I mean, there wasn't. I know Ade Adebawari was getting some talk there as well. Michael Mayer, I already mentioned. So, no, I mean, there wasn't like a ton, in my opinion.
Yeah. Nick, what about you, brother?
What was the question exactly? I'm sorry.
Just was there anyone else that fell out of round one that we haven't already kind of talked about that surprised you a little bit? Maybe not like truly first round consensus guy, but somebody that you thought was going round one that didn't?
Honestly, I think we hit the nail on the head overall. Maybe like John Michael Schmitz, I could expected him going towards the latter half of the 1st round, but I think a lot of guys, aside from like Michael Mayer and Porter and Branch, most of the guys were expected overall.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm trying to look at the questions
Oh,
here.
I will say, I thought if one linebacker was going to go, one off-ball linebacker was going to go, I thought it'd be Drew Sanders, not Jack Campbell. I like Jack Campbell more. He's my linebacker one. I just thought with what Drew Sanders can do, a team would want to use him as a blitzer and stuff too. I thought he would be the one that people would covet, like somewhere in the 20s.
I think they looked at that missed tackle percentage and had second thoughts about that.
Yeah.
1 in every 5 attempts, baby.
That's so bad.
1 in every 5 attempts. This question is about Siaki Ika. Wanted to get your all's thoughts kind of on that. He was a name that I threw in my day 2 names to watch for the Steelers. I'm just curious on what you guys think. Like, would 49 be the place where you guys would pull the trigger on a player like that?
I would not, because I think Siaki Ika is more of a player I don't value in that way. I think he has very twitchy hand usage overall, which aids in his pass rush ability, but I think he is a bit slow off the ball and overall lacks in the athleticism to defeat reach blocks, which makes him a little bit of a liability versus zone run schemes. So for me, I don't see Siaki Ika as that guy I would take that high.
Same. I've said the same thing. I think for the amount of snaps that you're going to get, it's kind of hard for me to invest a top 50 in him.
Yeah. He was a guy that fell just out of my top 100, man. The 22 tape just wasn't what the 21 tape was for me. And then, combine that with him coming in lighter at the combine and then still, not testing well at all.
That's the thing. I think that was the thing is like he got down the weight a little bit and people are like, oh, maybe he will test a little bit better. Like, it's not like he's like supposed to be some athlete. Like, he didn't need to test great, but he even tested worse than people thought he was going to.
Right. Yeah. 100%. We're on the same page there. This is a good one. A guy that we've talked about a little bit about.
Listen, if they get Broderick Jones, Keanu Benton, and Julius Brents, nobody's going to hear the end of it. I'm just going to keep replaying that clip when we were talking before the draft.
Yeah. What do you guys is 32 for Brents? Is that crazy? I'm not saying they take him over Porter. Do you guys think that's crazy?
I think that would be early for me, but I do like Julius Brents' game. I think it makes more sense at 49 as opposed to 32. Now, as an off-the-wall pick, it's possible. Another off-the-wall pick, I feel like we've kind of forgotten Kelee Ringo's name, who was shown a lot of interest in throughout the process. That's a guy they could be considering at 32 for all we know.
I just want to say, like, again, trying to link a team to a player, calling my shot. I think if they want Brents, they would have to take him at 32. I think Indy would be all over him at 35.
Yeah, I like that fit as well. He's a Ballard guy.
I mean, and then 2 spots down, Seattle picks at 37. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, even though, yeah, he's definitely a Seattle-ish corner as well. Yeah, I think it will really be interesting to see what happens with Brents. I do agree. I think that 32 is rich for my blood, but I'm like going through all the scenarios in my head. Like I just think Porter for me is like easily the best corner that's on the board right now. But I'm just curious on if they would value a guy like Stevenson or a guy like Brents over him, because they've shown a good amount of interest in them. They were, pre-draft visits, formals at the combine. Obviously they saw Stevenson and Brents at the Senior Bowl.
Darius Rush too, didn't he?
Yeah, Darius Rush as well. Another name. Yeah. I mentioned him as a guy. If they were to double dip on boundary corners, I think they'd probably have to take Rush at like 80, just because of the upside associated with him and the size and speed factor. But let's go. He'd be great for Kenny. It's another name that I keep coming back to as well. We talked about this possibility. What about Darnell Washington? How would we feel if that was 32 and they picked Washington over Porter Jr. or some of these other guys that's on the board?
I wouldn't personally like it, but I get the fit of Darnell Washington. That said, I'd be looking at the value of board and where Joey Porter Jr. is and Brian Branch is, and I'd be shaking my head a little bit. It'd be one of those picks where it happens, I'm not going to feel good, but I'll talk myself into it later.
I think it's almost like when they took Pat Freiermuth for me in the second round with Creed Humphrey still on the board, where I was like, oh, that's a good player, but like, man, Creed Humphrey was sitting right there. I'd feel that like in this scenario, Joey Porter Jr., Brian Branch is Creed Humphrey, and Darnell Washington's Pat Freiermuth.
Yeah, I totally see what you're saying there.
Definitely.
Yeah, I don't know. I talked a lot about Washington last night, and then going back, staying up all night and watching the Georgia offense. I just kept. It was so fun to just see this big number 0 flying across the screen next to 59, and I'm thinking to myself, like an hour in, I'm like, man, I could get down to do this every week. Like this would be kind of fun if this was part of my job, getting to see these guys.
Somebody else
people.
should have taken Porter Jr. and Branch in round 1, and then like this could be, I'd be 100% more on board with this pick.
I agree.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, I mean that's the thing. If you were to tell me 2 days ago, and that's why I'm trying to keep an open mind about it. But I just think that my expectations for their draft haul, fair or not, have skyrocketed because of the way the board fell for them right here. Because I was telling everybody last night too, like this is, if I was to tell you that they had a chance to get Brian Branch and Broderick Jones without giving up any of their day 2 capital, everyone in the chat would have done like backflips all the way home. I mean, we would have all been
no future pick next year or anything.
Yeah. I mean, and that's on the board here. It's so simple. All they got to do is just run the card in, and we'll be extremely happy. But it has gotten my hopes up a lot. But we'll see what happens.
You guys might have talked about this, Derek, after the draft last night.
Mm-hmm.
But this is obviously the first time that the three of us have had a conversation since the draft.
Mm-hmm.
Am I missing something? Like, do I got to go back and watch Emmanuel Forbes again? Like, I like the player, don't get me wrong, but he was the second cornerback off the board.
Nick likes him more than I do, so I'm gonna let Nick have that.
I like Emmanuel Forbes, but I'll be real. The 16 to Washington over Christian Gonzalez and Deonte Banks and Joey Porter Jr. That's not it. Like I like Emmanuel Forbes' game. I think he has a very gambling play style that I get. I do think he is a bit early to open the gate, especially in his 21 film, which a lot of people cite in terms of how he plays, but I do think he got better at keeping the gate closed more often in his pedal in 22, became more disciplined. I think there's a high upside with him, but I think there's a very low floor with him in terms of how he plays. Best recovery speed in the class. He can get beat and still get back in phase. It's ridiculous the amount of risks he can take in coverage just because of that recovery speed. Fluid player, but he's hot. He's like slightly like leggy, so he has like some leggier transitions overall. Yeah, it's a little bit like Sauce Gardner last year, where like Gardner looked a little weird, a little clunky, a little weird out of his transitions. Not necessarily because he was stiff, but just because he was just really high hipped.
Yeah. No, Zach, I'm on board with you. When Washington was coming up, I was thinking to myself like, okay, they're taking Porter here, 100%.
Yeah,
and then,
that's the
name came across Emmanuel Forbes. I was like, what in the world? Not just them taking him over Porter. I don't agree with it, but it's not too crazy. But them taking him over Gonzalez, I mean, and I don't know, maybe Washington, I don't know if they did their homework on Gonzalez or not, because if you're like me, I thought there was a 0% chance that Gonzalez was going to be there outside the top 15. That was wild to me. I just think from a value perspective, like you said, that was not it. It was one of my least favorite, honestly, picks of the first round. And Washington, just to be honest, man, they've pulled a couple of these head scratchers that have kind of left me on the floor. I won't say that this is a Jamin Davis level pick, but I remember when they picked him out of Kentucky, and I was like, this is not going to end well. And that just goes back to my rant about how the NFL and I guess
linebacker play
we have no clue how to evaluate linebackers because they never pan out in round one.
They did say, no, I don't want to be taken as like, I don't like Emmanuel Forbes as a player, because I do. I was thrown off by the fact that he was the second cornerback off the board.
100%. He was the number 32 player or 32, I think, player on my big board. So I mean, it's not like it's not a wasn't like a Cole Strange situation where I liked Cole Strange, but it was like I liked Cole Strange as a mid-day 2 guy, and they took him in round 1.
Tyler calling that happening in the first round is the most ridiculous prediction.
I remember
I've
that. Yeah, Tyler's the
What?
GOAT.
Someone called that?
Yeah, and he went based off somebody else's ranking. So our friend Jake Shavink had Cole Strange as the number 3 guard in the class, and Tyler was like, "New England always does something weird. Who's Jake's number 3 guard?" Cole Strange, and he had it. Yeah,
That is hilarious.
That is awesome.
That's so funny. I want to put you guys on the spot here with this.
Oh,
This
great.
is normally not my style of, I guess answer, but after his presser, Love Jones, he's a true Steeler. Kenny's going to thrive. I'm excited about our season. How far do you think we can go?
Oh man,
I'm not gonna lie, man, and you guys know me. Because we talk frequently. I'm not this type that tends to get. I try to stay even keel and level, but my expectations for the Steelers season, if they do what I hope they do at this 32nd pick, are going to be relatively high. Like I really think that the Steelers have had the best offseason that I think that they've had in a long time. Like their biggest need, offensive line, really retooling that group. I really like the weaponry. If Pickett takes the year 2 leap, I mean, this team can be really good, man. I know the
schedule.
Yeah, a cupcake schedule without a ton of really good quarterbacks on the schedule. Like that's something to keep in mind. That's something I always look at. The defense, like I think, is mostly intact. I mean, there are some question marks for sure, but
Matt Canada.
Yeah, Matt Canada. Well, that's not a question mark. I said question marks like we don't know what they are. Like we know what Matt Canada is, but I try to stay like really even keel, not too high, not too low. But like I think this is a double digit win team, man. Just on paper, like I think that I'm hammering the over. I think it was like 8.5.
Yeah, which
for
is the
next year.
same as last year, right?
Yeah, I think that this is a 9 to 10 win team, and a team that's going to push for a wild card spot. And I'm really excited about the future of this group, man. I just look at all the youth that they have on offense, like what they're building. I think they're trying to establish an identity on offense, and that's something I really, really value. And this day 2 haul could really even boost those expectations more, even if rookies.
Yeah, once they take Branch or Porter, you're going to be
I'm gonna be through the
planning
moon.
the
Super Bowl,
parade,
baby,
yeah.
let's go.
Yeah, go ahead, Nick.
It's kind of fun because the Ravens have gotten better too in the offseason. They addressed the Lamar Jackson question too, and they got all those weapons for him. So, and the Bengals are obviously still like really, really good too. So it's going to be a really fun, conversation to have if Pittsburgh does nail day 2 of the draft, because I think this could be a pretty competitive division overall. You talk about the Browns too. I mean, they still got a really good team, but their defense was just utterly terrible last year. And, that's their question, what kind of play can they get out of Deshaun Watson? But for me, bet on Mike Tomlin, no matter what. Get him over 8.5 wins. I could definitely see that. For me, the offense, it's all Matt Canada, because I think they've had the weapons. I just want to see them be able to use their weapons. This is like having a Lamborghini and a Corvette in your garage, and you decide to take the bus.
Did you see what I said? I made a similar comparison, but instead of taking the bus, you're like filling it up with like oat milk, like that instead of gas. Yeah, but I agree though. Like you look at a 9-win team from last year, despite the fact that you didn't have TJ Watt for the extended period of time, obviously going through a quarterback transition there as well. Matt Canada is the offensive coordinator. Obviously that part's still going to be the case. Improved offensive line. I like where they're at going into next season, but I do think it is going to be a very competitive division. It's just hard for me to look at a 9-win team last year, what they've done in the offseason, and think that they're not going to be a better football team next year.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I mean, I'm very optimistic, man. I'm pretty excited. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Contract year, Alex Highsmith.
Yes, sir.
20 sacks, baby.
Yeah. Hey, man.
Hey, you got 14.5 last season. I mean, it's not necessarily out of the realm, I guess.
28 sacks coming. He's doubling it.
Can't wait for fans to be pissed off when they take Ringo. So let's talk about this. Kelee Ringo. Like, what's the general reaction that you guys will have, if pick 32, it comes across the bottom line and it says Pittsburgh Steelers select Kelee Ringo, cornerback from Georgia. What's the reaction there from you guys?
So for me, obviously, I like the value that's remaining on the board. Kelee Ringo is not a bad player. I very much like him off the field a lot. I think he's a little bit better than he gets credit for. But the concern I have with him, as opposed to other corners, I think his change of direction is it very much shows up on the film and not in a good way. On stopping routes, I've just noticed he just tends to take too many gather steps, like almost like 3 or 4 gather steps before he can slow down. Part of being a great corner is not having just great recovery speed, great speed in general to be able to stick with receivers. It's being able to deaccelerate quickly enough when receivers are able to stop on a dime. And I just think that aspect of Ringo's game is still very questionable. But I do like the character. I like the work ethic. I love the fact he's working with Richard Sherman because Sherman knows exactly what he needs to work on in his game. So for me, not my personal corner pick, but I wouldn't be mad with it.
That's kind of what I was going to say. Is I'd understand them taking the swing there, and I really don't even know what else to add because Nick was going to say it all. Literally, the one thing I was hoping he didn't mention was the Richard Sherman thing, and I was like, dang it.
Yeah, well, he did his homework, I guess. I swear I didn't slip Nick that question before we jumped on. Like he just rattled it off himself.
He was ready for it.
No, I did a YouTube video on Kelee Ringo for my channel, and like Nick said, just getting killed on stop routes, and part of that is just because his eyes are in the wrong place, and I think that Ringo is a strong kid. Keep in mind, he's only a kid; like he's going to be a 21-year-old rookie.
Yes.
He's really strong. He just tries to turn everything into a track meet. Like he's almost too passive with his type of speed. And it almost looks like when you watch him, like, is this dude worried about people blowing by him? I mean, he was playing Cedric Tillman like he was 2 or 3 steps faster than he was. And I'm sitting there watching the film and I'm like, man, slow down. This dude is not capable of running by you. Like he can't run by you. And you see it like when he gets moving in a straight line, like this dude can fly for how big he is. And I won't freak out if Ringo's the pick because I do think that there's upside with him. I don't think that you can help some of his issues and his transitions back down the field. I mean, those transitions where he does have to decelerate and come back on those stops, they can improve with his eyes getting in the right place and like staying on the receiver and some positioning stuff that he needs to work on. But I don't know if you're going to get the CB1 type of upside that maybe we thought we were going to get out of him in the summer of this past year.
It's kind of weird with Ringo because I tend to pay attention to corners a lot during the combine. I like to see them open their hips and be able to run. And I think he is a guy who opens his hips pretty smoothly overall. It's just he has issues deaccelerating. So it's a weird like mesh of he has smooth hips, but he just doesn't slow down quickly enough. Yeah. And it's just strange. It's a really weird combination. You don't see it very often.
Yeah, he's definitely an odd build for a corner. I would love to dive even more into his film from this past season. He was a very interesting player. But you talk about Richard Sherman, man, like they both play. Sherman was the kick step god, and Ringo, he plays kick step too. And I think that's the perfect player for him to work with. And I know we talked about this, Zach and I, on the stream a couple nights ago. But if he was to end up in Seattle, man,
yes,
I would be over the moon about his potential just because I know that they could get him right. You know what I'm saying? From a technical perspective. And he has good feet too. Like that's another thing. Like I think he's got good feet. But it'll be interesting to see what happens. He's a guy that I could see a lot of different outcomes for. I don't know. I don't know how much the Steelers like him.
That's what I was kind of trying to look into was just like the paper trail here with him and the Steelers.
Yeah, so I mean, his top 30 got canceled. Like it was never actually fully reported.
Yeah, but they did have the dinner with him, the private dinner. So
yeah, and they saw him at the pro day. They had a 4-month combine. I mean, there's more than enough there for them to take him. On round in day 2. Todd, I love all Steelers talk. Appreciate you, man. That's awesome. Let me give y'all something real quick, just because we haven't really talked about this. Who's the guy on day 2? All right, in these next couple picks that they haven't shown? Like, we've talked about a lot of
I
guys
was
that
gonna
they
say
have
this.
shown
Yeah.
a ton of interest in. Porter Jr., Branch, Ringo, Brent Stevenson, Keanu Benton, all these guys that they've shown a good amount of interest in. Who's the guy that is an off the wall kind of pick that if they picked them, you would be like, man, this actually does make sense? I'm putting y'all on the spot. I know that's a little bit difficult of a question.
I'm going through my list real quick. Obviously, I have to say Corey Trice Jr. from Purdue. Dude, I love this.
I was going down the corners list on PFN right now. Nah, you're good. I'll come up with somebody else. I was literally I'm on PFN right now, right? And I'm going through positions, and I was on corners, and I was just scrolling down. I was like, oh, Corey Trice, 6'3", like really good size. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. No, Corey Trice for me, like that's a guy that I don't think I don't expect them to draft at all, because the interest just hasn't been there all the way through. But he fits their mold of press man corners. He's scheme fluid enough to be able to play offline too, and off man coverage and in zone. Like, he's got good eyes. He's just a guy I just really want on my team, but I don't think they're gonna take him. One more name I'll say. This is more of a true 3-tech, but I freaking love Kobe Turner from Wake Forest. That would be such an off-the-wall pick, but it would remind me a little bit of Javon Hargrave in terms of how he's built. I compared Turner to a Grady Jarrett. I think he'd be a very similar player. Might not be the best overall scheme fit, but the player is damn good.
What you got, Smitty? You look like you're deep in thought over there.
I am, because I'm switching around positions here, going through some guys. And like, obviously we've talked about Dorian Williams. Like, Derek has thrown him out there as somebody he thinks is going to be a Steeler. But while I was looking at his name, my eyes then went to right next door to the Steelers, Servassier Dennis at Penn.
Would love it.
And I just wonder, he hasn't been connected to them at all, but it's almost like right next door, they've seen enough of him, kind of like Pickett last year, where everybody thinks it's Willis. We're kind of thrown off the scent because Pickett's in their back door. They don't really need to do this whole song and dance with him. They know everything about him. I think Servassier Dennis could be a similar situation.
Yeah, that's a good call.
I love Servassier Dennis. Reminds me a lot of Azeez Al-Shire, and he's one of the smartest players in this class. He could have gone to Ivy League schools. He went to Pitt. Just very smart. A bunch of reports came out about him saying that he could learn like the most complicated playbook, and he could be a green dot as a year one. I'm just like, good Lord. Like, he just processes really fast.
Yeah.
I
watch him every Saturday. He's a good player.
I'm trying to, I know my answer to this question. I'm just trying to scroll and see if I can figure out another name that I haven't already given here.
I was like, I was trying to find somebody in the offensive side of the ball, and I'm just.
It's so tough though too, because like the Steelers, just with their MO and how they go about the draft, it's just so methodical, and I feel like we've got their kind of draft down to a science that there's only usually like one pick every year. Like the Calvin Austin pick last year was the one that was just completely off the wall.
I was so happy for that pick though.
Yeah, I mean, it was just completely off the wall. I was trying to figure out something like that. I'm gonna still go with Jartavius Martin from Illinois. I think that it's such a good fit for them. A guy that can, play both safety spots. He can play two high. He can play single high. Has a ton of man coverage experience. I think he's got solid ball skills. He's played in the slot. The dude, all these Illinois DBs, they play the exact same. Me and Nick talked about this, but they literally all play like their life depends on every single rep. And I absolutely love that about all of them. That's what made them so fun to watch. So I'll say, Keon Martin in the second round or the third round. I would be levitating if they were able to grab him at like 49. I honestly think that may be my favorite scenario, assuming Benton doesn't last till 49. If they could grab a guy like Porter Jr. And then Keon Martin at 49, that would be like I said, I would be levitating.
Who's the pick before that then to make that happen at 49?
Porter. That gives me both. That gives me both my. I mean, Martin's not a corner, but he can play slot, and that's what I keep asking. Who's playing in the slot next year for the Steelers on passing downs?
Come on, dude, Arthur Millette.
Please, please.
I mean, Joe Burrow's eyes are gonna be like as wide as this basement if that ends up happening again. We saw what happened last time. The Bengals just started spamming T. Higgins in the slot, and they were like, "Oh, you're really gonna leave him out here? You're really gonna let him check our?"
Yeah, they were probably like, "All right, we're getting one of these, and then that's it."
Yeah,
like, all right, 2.
Yeah,
oh, he's still there. Yeah.
This is interesting. I was on the DK and Ramon show, and Ramon Foster said Ringo's a Steelers type DB.
I don't know what that is.
Yeah, do we know what a Steelers type DB is?
Terrell Edmonds already burns those.
Do they take enough DBs at significant points of the draft to really have a type anymore? I don't know. I don't know if they take enough swings. Maybe.
I mean, like the problem.
Also, hasn't there kind of been enough turnover where it's like we have to kind of wait and see what that is at this point?
Yeah, I keep hammering that point home, man. Like, I know everybody freaks out about the whole Steelers cornerback thing, and I get that they haven't been great. They have not been great about developing corners, but you got to take some swings, man. They haven't taken enough swings for me to really, be too awfully down on them.
That's why I keep saying that. People are like, oh, every time they take a corner or something, it's like Artie Burns, like, don't draft corners, just get them in free agency or trade or something. It's like, man, if we can't trust the organization to draft an entire position, just avoid it because they feel like they can't, just fold the franchise.
Yeah, it's just not. Like, it's not.
Yeah, it also doesn't help that when Pittsburgh does that, it's because the class isn't as deep as you would like, and they get sniped for a player like a William Jackson back then in the day, or it was weird with the Terrell Edmonds pick at the time because the interest was there, and I liked him like later on day 2, but there was a bunch of safeties that went day 2 I thought were better. It's weird because they have the mixture of passing on guys and they have the mixture of just reaching and having it just detract from what they might be thinking. Like Senquez Golson, 2nd round, that was a player I liked, but he ended up not really doing much and
literally didn't play a snap in an actual game.
Exactly. And then they got Mike Hilton, who was basically everything they hoped he would be. So
that's my thing, right? Like, we've hammered home the idea that the Steelers can't draft and develop cornerbacks, and like that's definitely true to an extent.
Yeah.
But it's funny because I don't ever see people being like, "Hey, will the Steelers develop Cam Sutton? The Steelers developed Mike Hilton, an undrafted free agent who got a big bag on a 2nd contract, who's a starter." We're talking about 2 guys in the last 5, 6, 7 years that the Steelers have developed. Sutton was a 3rd round pick, a compensatory selection, or no, Connor was.
No, he was the
selection.
Yeah. Connor
and then Mike Hilton, an undrafted free agent. Like I don't think we give them credit for those finds. So I just think that you got to look at the whole thing in context instead of just running with some narratives that while I think some of it's fair, I just think sometimes we lose full scope of the picture, I guess. This is a name, you talk about names that they have not showed any interest in that your boy would be down with, especially if he continued to slide to like 49, which I don't see. I mean, I guess it could happen. What do we think about BJ Ojulari? I'll go last on this one.
I like BJ Ojulari. I just don't. I just think I'm not the one who wants to take edge rusher as high as everyone else. I'm looking at it more in the 80. At first, I was looking at it in the 120 range, but they don't have 120 anymore. But I'm looking at it more in the 80 range than anything else because, 1, I think edge is deep, but 2, I think a lot of the edge rushers in this class I think they would be putting too much resources into edge rusher as opposed to too little at that point. They need to find a median, and I think for example, like 80 would make a lot more sense with Nick Herbig.
Yeah, I agree. I'm the same way in terms of investing in edge. I do like Ojulari as a player, though. I like can play in 2-point or 3-point stance. Probably best rushing from wide alignment because his ability to convert that speed to power. Started developing kind of that bull rush that his brother kind of, the reason he got drafted where he did. So I think he's an interesting player. I like the player, but yeah, for the Steelers to get him where they would be taking him at, I probably wouldn't do it or wouldn't want them to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that just from a need perspective, but I do like Ojulari, and I think putting him in a
Yeah.
Pittsburgh scheme is pretty enticing, especially depending on what happens.
Well,
with
here's
Alex
the thing:
Highsmith.
if you were going to tell me right now, it's like we know for sure Alex Highsmith won't be back in Pittsburgh.
That's the question, and only they know that.
Yeah, then I'd have to be like, okay, well, then you got to consider Ojulari.
Yeah. Ojulari, man, he's a loose and fluid athlete. I really like him. I talked a little bit about Kalijah Kancey last night about how I felt like he was the best pass rusher in the class just because of how wide of an array of pass rushing moves that he had. Ojulari's got a deep, deep, deep bag of moves. I mean, he could cross chop. He has two-hand swipe, ghost, speed to power, long arm. He's longer. But he doesn't use the long arm or power as much as his brother did. But I think that there was some games where he pulled it out, and I'm like, dude, why don't you do this more often? Like, you've got the length to do this. Ojulari, speaking of Broderick Jones, I put up a film room of Broderick Jones earlier today on my channel. And at the very end of it, I highlighted him and Ojulari's matchup, which Ojulari was giving him a lot of problems, man. He, in a span of like 5 or 6 plays, he ended up with like 3 pressures on the quarterback, hit Stetson Bennett a couple times where he was beating him with different moves. He had a ghost move, two-hand swipe, long arm on Broderick. So he's a good player, man. I think that he's somebody that isn't probably an NFL-ready run defender year one. I mean, he's going to have to get a little stronger in his lower half to be able to set the edge at this level. But he's someone that I was a little bit surprised that the Steelers didn't have any interest in him. Like, I asked him at the combine, I was like, please tell me you met with the Steelers. And he was like, no, I haven't met with them yet, man. and I haven't seen anything about them. So he'd be another guy, like to my question earlier about like guys that they haven't showed any interest in that I would 100% be down for.
Ooh, somebody mentioned him to me earlier. I don't know that I've seen his name connected at all to the Steelers. Zach Harrison out of Ohio State.
Yeah, he would make sense too. And you could probably get him. Well, I don't know. His athletic profile is so crazy that I could see a team falling in love with him earlier. But he probably
some
isn't
people
play at 80.
Like 2 or 3 weeks out of the draft, he was getting some smoke for like that Saints pick in the back end of round 1. And that was probably more of like looking at their draft trends, like, okay, Peyton Turner, the move up for Davenport, like the type of edges they like. That was probably that was more of about the team fit than like he's deserving of that capital. But yeah, he was getting some buzz there.
Yeah. My God, Jamie said, did you sleep? I took a 2-hour nap. I finally went to bed at 1:30 in the afternoon. So yeah, I got a little bit of sleep. This dude throwing Nick a shout out because he's heard him and all of us really talk about Luke Schoonmaker.
Yes, sir.
As a potential Steeler pick. I would really be on board with that.
Hey, it would give us the best tight end chance by far out of any team in the league. We'd be able to chant Muth and Schoon just like that,
awesome.
Man.
Yeah, Acrisure would be lit. Someone asked a crazy question a second ago, and I really want to go find it. Someone asked in the chat if there was a possibility. Since I'm talking about, man, we can't enjoy nice things. We get too greedy. Someone asking in the chat if the Steelers could get Branch and Joey Porter Jr. Like not one or the other, if they could get both. Yeah, my guy Carson, I love this. You are shooting for the moon, my good brother. I love that.
Yeah.
Is there a possibility? I mean,
listen, never say never, because if you would have asked us before night 1 started if Joey Porter Jr. was even going to get to round 2, we would have said no.
And here's the deal with Branch too. Like Branch is difficult because he is going to be, with him not testing extremely well, and with NFL teams, they value slot corner differently. Like some teams like really prioritize it, other teams, just don't. And a guy like Branch who hasn't played as much safety,
they might have maybe that projection question.
Yeah, that's the thing with like Minka. Like I know some people compare him to Minka. I don't see that type of player. But I do think that the thing about Minka is that we did get to see him play safety at Alabama. Like he
A little
played
bit,
primarily that same position that Branch did, but we got to see him play safety more than we got to see Brian Branch play safety. So
yeah.
I think the
transition
similarities
was
are
different.
above the neck.
Yeah,
Yeah,
both really
yeah.
smart players, though.
Yeah.
It's
Um,
interesting that you brought that up though, because Minka was a slot player for Alabama, and I remember leading up to the draft, I had there were people like Lance Zierlein questioning what his actual position was going to be. I was just like, he just shows the range to be a free safety, and like he did like the Washington game, he showed the ability to play in single high. You just had to find those plays with him.
Yeah.
And that's the type of player you have to project those types of guys. Branch, I expected him to fall out of the first round. That one wasn't as big of a surprise to me as it was Joey Porter, because NFL loves big long corners. But Brian Branch is a defensive back who wears multiple hats. Thing is he plays more in the slot, and he doesn't really play that safety position as much. So there's that projection, plus the testing is not nearly as good as Minko's was, because Minko was a much better tester.
Let's talk, Teresa. I have to highlight any Quan Martin comments, so I'm financially obligated at this point to do so. There are a couple comments in here for Keon White, so
I will lose
let's
it.
get that out the chat.
No, if they take Keon White at 32.
Nick's fired.
No, just don't do that to me, please. Because
explain that. Explain that. Why is that going to set you over the edge?
It's going to set me over the edge because I think Keon White is an edge rusher, not an interior defensive lineman. A lot of people think of him as a 3 technique. I think he has severe balance issues taking on combos. He plays really high. He's aggressive to a fault. Like, his footwork is almost erratic in how he moves, and he's a little more raw as a pass rusher than you'd like for a guy who's gonna be.
He's an older guy, yeah.
Yeah, and he's gonna be like,
rookie.
24-year-old rookie, and he's gonna be 25 by the end of it. Please do not do that to me. I would be very displeased. He's just more of a tweener to me. I think he's a better edge rusher though, but they play him as a 3 technique, and he's going to get absolutely destroyed. Like, teams are going to look at him every single time he's on the field.
What's your thoughts on that, Smitty?
I'm not on board with Keon White whatsoever. I was absolutely shocked that he got invited to the NFL draft. I had to throw him in my first round mock draft because of that. I think Nick highlighted some of the issues that I had watching him, with him losing leverage. His age too, like as an older prospect. I think sometimes that gets like over highlighted, but at the same time, I am going to take it into consideration. I can't get on board with the idea of Keon White.
Yeah, I totally get it, man. I totally understand the rationale. The one thing I'll say about White, and I'm going to play devil's advocate here, and I really do think that Keon White has a little bit of Steelers feel because of how hard he plays. The dude has a motor. I will give that to him. He plays incredibly hard, and I really do appreciate that. And I know that's not a reason to take somebody at 32. I'm just saying, I said this in a similar fashion about Lucas Van Ness, who I'm also lower on than the consensus. I just think that, when you have that type of motor and you're a really good athlete, it does give you a floor to land on, even if I do think that White is raw. And especially to be raw and 24 years old, yikes. It's just, like I said, it's not my favorite thing. Is that a scenario? I mean, I think you guys already answered this question, but is that a scenario where you guys are just throwing your TV? Is that how they ruin this draft? Is it they take Keon White at 32?
That's how they ruin this draft, in my opinion. They could take some of these corners that are rated in the 3rd round, and I would be way happier than I would be if they took Keon White, because I like his potential as an edge rusher. I don't want to invest that high in the edge, and I don't think he's an interior defensive lineman. He just has no sand in his pants. And Senior Bowl week, it was a disaster how often he was getting blown off the ball. It was hard to watch.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that answers the Keon White as a resounding no from Nick and Smitty, and I'm on board with what they're saying. But appreciate you, man, on the channel. There's another super chat that we got over here. Fax Mob. This dude's always in here too, so we appreciate.
He didn't even
bro.
drop a comment, did he?
Yeah, you gave a super chat. And you didn't even drop a comment for us to say something. For us to say something, man. Well, I would have definitely highlighted whatever question you had, or.
You started talking about, I thought, Quan Martin, and then we got switched to the Keon White thing.
Yeah, nah. I'm just, there's so many comments in the chat. I'm trying to keep up. What a second round edge send the wrong message to Alex. His dad definitely thinks so.
I agree.
Okay.
I agree.
Smitty?
That's interesting. I mean, yeah, I guess a second round is obviously different than where Alex was picked as a third round comp pick, but at the same time, that was the Steelers' second selection. So like he's been in that position before Alex himself, where they were adding a third edge guy to a team that already had one. A little bit different situation. Bud was playing on the franchise tag that year, obviously, but still just like that one guaranteed year left, like the Steelers have with him. What is this?
I don't know how. It's so funny how he just like randomly pops up.
I was
how
so
we doing
ready.
though?
I was ready to go. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Keep going.
No, it's crazy that
and there he goes. He's back out.
I was gonna mess with him and tell him that it just came across my feed that the Steelers traded pick 32.
Oh, because he would have went and sprinted inside. Yeah, that would have been funny.
What were we talking about? Oh, second round edge sending the wrong message. I get it on both sides. That's all I'll say about it. But I go back to my original thing where I'm just not at the point where I'm investing in edge that early for this team.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, I have a pretty big bias about, you know, my
Steelers traded 32.
Did they? All right, I'll see you guys later. I will say this on that, just to jump in here on a really hot note. I did get a little tip. For those of you who haven't seen, the Andrew Filipponi tossed out that the Raiders offered 38 and pick 100. Still collecting all the data, but I was told that that's more likely true than not true from the other side. So
5 spots.
Do we like that though? Is that worth it?
I don't think it is
in this class.
I think if we're being totally honest, I do. I think 38, you're still getting your value. I don't think you're going to lose out on all your guys. And then to pick 100 at the end of the third round, I think you could still get another.
That obviously makes up for losing 120.
It does.
And then move up. So it's like you moved up for Broderick Jones for nothing and also got 20 spots higher on that pick.
I don't know.
I mean, yeah, you want Branch or Porter at 32. That's the thing. Like,
Branch or Porter. I agree. Like those are your like the top options. But like, I just think that in the grand scheme of what the Steelers did, like, and what we were prepared for, we're like, it's not a bad thing to say. I'm trying to fix my mic.
There you go. Oh, you sound better now. Yeah, you're good.
I sound good now?
Yeah.
Okay, word. Who cares what Pony says? I feel that all the time. I think that in the grand scheme of just like what they did and how we came into the draft, like to take the chance, because I think that's all that is that you're taking a chance that both of those guys will be gone. But I mean, Derek, you said it earlier, like Benton could still be there. Is that a bad option 3? Like to say like that, and then you got pick 100 and what you could do with pick 100, which could be a Dorian Williams, you know, like that's your pick to come back in and get an inside linebacker. I don't know. I just think the draft's so deep that it's not a bad move.
I don't think it's a bad move either. It's definitely a teardrop between Brian Branch and Porter, who are the top 2 remaining players that they probably have like late first round grade. If I had to
my
guess.
Favorite part of this, and it's not related to like the trade or what's going to be there at all, is in Pony's tweet. He had to clarify that pick 100 was a late third.
Oh,
yeah.
Thanks for clearing that up for us, Tony. As if we didn't know that. That's funny.
That's my favorite part of this whole thing.
I'm assuming he's saying that Vegas is coming up to get Levis.
Levis.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
that
that's
would
what
be
we
my
talked about
guess is
last night
Levis.
happening. So
I didn't
that's
ask
cool.
that, to be honest with you. I was more concerned
Or
about
if
the
you
pick.
still use autocorrect Will Levi's.
Oh my God, bro!
Yeah.
That's
It's
my
been
entire life.
killing me on the phone.
It's my
I
entire
made
life.
Levis a word, so it's good now.
There we
It doesn't-
go. That's
Don't
See,
worry.
that's why you're
Nick's putting in
smart,
that
man.
work.
You're the brains of this operation.
Yeah, Nick's putting in the work there. See, okay, so here's my thought as well. When it comes to this stuff, is like the offensive linemen are sliding, the defensive linemen are sliding. Like, what can you possibly get at 100? Like, like, can you leave this draft with like 5 guys that you feel comfortable with as like parts of this team this season and moving forward? Like, is that not a win? I think that's a win.
Yeah, fair point. Oh, to answer this guy's question, Tippmann, Avila, or John Michael Schmitz, I'm a Tippmann guy. I really like Joe Tippmann.
I actually, Nick, I wanted you to not convince me because I like Joe Tippmann, but I obviously have the concerns. I feel like anybody that has concerns about Tippmann do with his height,
Yeah,
being that you can get up under his pad, his pad level naturally is just going to be higher. So say that I am not necessarily a fan of the fit. I want you to try to sell me on why he would work in Pittsburgh and why you believe that wouldn't be an issue.
I think he's an athletic reach blocker. I think he is really good on the move, just a really nasty blocker. Honestly, you mentioned the leverage issues. That does happen with his height. But for his height, he is a guy who has much better leverage than I've seen from most taller centers. Honestly, he's more like a Landon Dickerson in that regard in terms of being able to keep that pad level. I do think he has some issues like dealing with those shorter, stockier guys like a Calvin Avery from Illinois who gave him a little bit of fits. But I think Tippmann is like in terms of pure potential at center, he has the highest potential out of Avila and John Michael Schmitz.
Yeah, I'll lean Avila on this question. Avila was my interior offensive lineman too, but I can see the argument for Tippmann. Like Nick said, just the movement skills for him, especially in his own blocking scheme. You can 100% get this guy out in space and pull. I just like Avila, the 4 positions that he played in college, having that center versatility, played both guard spots, I might add. I think he's an outstanding pass protector. Like I mentioned last night, I think that 2 of his better games that I saw on tape were against Georgia and against Michigan. And something that Brandon Thorne highlighted really, and I thought that it was very interesting to me and why I could see the GOAT, why I could see a team falling in love with him was, they were getting absolutely mollywopped by Ohio State in the playoffs, or was it Georgia? I guess it was Georgia. Yeah, it was Georgia. They were getting mollywopped by like 55, and Avila was still playing like balls to the wall at the very end of that game, just absolutely giving it his all, like still putting good reps on tape. And I think it says a lot about him that 2 of his better performances came against like Mozzie Smith and then that Georgia defensive line as well. So he would be a guy that if the Steelers took here at 32, like I think that people would be like, why are they taking an interior offensive lineman? But I think he's got he could potentially pay that type of investment off. So
I'm a Tippmann guy just because of the hair, for being honest.
You know what?
Avila is my pick.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the hair is the hair, man. If Creed Humphrey taught us anything, it's that a center with great hair.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, exactly. Like if trends are a thing, and we look at Creed Humphrey and the fact he's the best center, one of the best centers in the league, Joe Tippmann should be next, right? With that mullet.
Yep. Jason Kelsey with the phenomenal beard. You got great hair. You're a good center. Like that's just what it is.
I forgot about Drew and I doing this last night. Literally, so when the draft ended, or the first round ended last night, me, Drew, and Tyler were just still sitting in the room, still live, just having a conversation as if no one else was there and could hear us we were going through literally every team that picked between 32 and 38 because we thought naturally that would be a place to trade down to and seeing if those teams had met with Porter or Branch, and none of them had.
Like no top 30 visits at all.
Not one?
Nope. Julius Brent's on there for those teams, though.
The Colts, right?
Indy, Arizona as well, and Seattle.
Wow.
Okay. That is interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know there's been talk about Atlanta trading up. I think if Atlanta trades up, I don't think it's for a quarterback. I think it's for Branch.
No, it's for Brian Branch.
I agree.
It's for Brian Branch.
I think they really
I
like
will
Branch.
say this. I don't think the Steelers are going to move down if they don't believe one of probably those two guys and maybe like a third is going to be available to them by the time they pick. Like, I don't think that they're just like, yeah, screw it. We'll just take a guess, and hope. Like, that's not how they operate normally, but it's definitely not how they're going to operate in round 2.
I think Keon Benton would be that third player.
Yeah, I can see it.
I think he would be that third player as well, but I think that they'd feel really comfortable taking that third player and then going after a guy like Tyreek Stevenson or Kelee Ringo. But I think that one of those 3 guys is going to, I tossed maybe Keon White out there as a sleeper. I'm not saying that I'm a fan of him. I'm just saying that they're a fan of him.
You just missed the conversation of literally Nick and Smitty losing their minds over Keon White just before you jumped on.
He's not great. He's not, he's not great. But I just follow what the Steelers do, and Mike Tomlin is from the jump been in love with this guy. So they think he's an athletic freak. And if that's who they're looking for, I think that's a sleeper.
I gotta jump off, but I'm leaving you with this. Keanu Benton's gonna be Pittsburgh Steeler tonight. If I were to take a second guess,
say it. You know you want to say it. You know you want to say it.
No, I'm gonna. Since I was right last night, I'm gonna throw Derek a bone. If I got something going on right now where there's like this aura, right, and I know I'm a full on ball knower right now, we're throwing Derek a bone. Quan Martin's gonna be Pittsburgh Steeler.
Let's go.
Oh,
let's go.
That's a name.
Drop
right
the
there.
mic.
There's a squirrel.
I appreciate you hopping on, bro.
Just to give everybody a visual here, there's a squirrel literally doing Olympics, taking off around this parking lot around me, and it's awesome to watch. Full laps around the parking lot. Yeah, guys. So I'm here. I want to talk about Broderick Jones a little bit. I want to say I'm a little impressed with this kid. He sounded real good in his intro. What I liked about him the most is the fact that he talked about going to Georgia and saying that, he showed up there as a freshman, didn't have any expectations to start. And once he realized it was going to be a grind, he kind of fell in love with that a little bit more. And he was just like, why would I leave? I'd rather just work for this and win championships. And
yeah,
that's definitely stood out. The other thing that stood out is he's got 2 snakes. That scares the living hell out of me. But,
oh, man.
Yeah, snake guy, man. Nobody wants a snake guy. But, that's what he is. He's a snake guy. He's got pictures of him and big iguanas. Crazy. And then I thought the coolest part was him taking 77 with the Steelers in honor of his fallen teammate, Willock. Forget my apologies that I don't have a first name ready, but Willock, who passed away in the car accident right after the national championship game. Apparently they were roommates, and he said that he'd like to have him live on through him in that jersey, and I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, that's definitely a touching situation, man. That's a tough one right there. I can't imagine what those guys, are going through with that, all of that happening, just especially as tough of a situation as that is, but just in such close proximity to probably one of the best days of those young kids' lives, after winning the national championship. It's tough.
Yeah, it's definitely got to be tough.
What definitely drew Pittsburgh to Broderick Jones was not only just his athleticism, but I just think he plays a lot like a Pittsburgh Steeler in terms of the nastiness. They like guys that can just generate that power and that torque that he can on the move. They like tone setters on the offensive line. That's why I might like some offensive linemen more than Pittsburgh does, and they might have a preference over this guy. But I completely get what their process is behind it, and I understand it. Broderick Jones is the highest upside of any tackle in this class.
I think back to like the first play that I highlighted in my Broderick Jones video, where with him coming across and just ending that poor Florida defensive back's life and putting him on his back. Yeah, I mean it was there are some. Like we talked about, man, there are some very, very high flashes with Broderick Jones. I mean, I think if you just give him time and, he's in the right environment with the right coaching staff, which hopefully that's in Pittsburgh, this dude could be a really, really good left tackle, like a top 10 left tackle in the National Football League. And I don't know, like we talked about earlier, Noah, I don't think that the Steelers have ever had this type of potential at left tackle. I mean, it's not a guarantee that he reaches that ceiling, obviously, but I don't think that they've ever had a guy with this type of athleticism, these type of traits, with how powerful he is, how well he moves, how light and quick his feet are, all the things that he can do already physically, especially as a run blocker, combined with what he could potentially be as a pass protector with more refinement, more experience, because it's a guy that's only started about 17, 19 games, basically just a 1-year starter at Georgia, 21 years old. The sky's the limit for Jones, man. And I'm super optimistic that he's going to be able to reach his ceiling here, because if he does, like, we got a dog. Like everybody's saying in the chat, we got a dog.
We got a dog. I agree. I think that's just, the potential is awesome and it's super exciting, but just even like where his floor is, Nick, you said it yesterday. I forget who you were talking about, but you said that there's somebody who has, I think it was Joey Porter Jr. maybe, who has a trap door to his floor.
No,
I don't think that would
Broderick Jones. I was talking about Broderick
you were
Jones.
talking about Broderick Jones.
Yeah.
That he has a trap door to his floor.
Yeah. I do think I can understand from a character perspective why people might not think that about Broderick Jones. For me, I think in terms of his technical deficiencies, they do leave him open, especially to power overcoming him. Like, he had issues with guys like Isaiah McGuire getting into his chest, which exposed his anchor. I don't necessarily think his anchor is bad. I just think he leaves his chest open too often with the two-hand punching, and he tends to drop his head a bit. It's definitely stuff that's correctable. I just have to reiterate that I think his rawness is a bit understated when going into year one, because I know the fan base is going to be super excited about, starting left tackle right out the gate, but we have to temper expectations, because I believe this is a guy we're going to look back in a few years and we're going to feel much stronger about him. That's why year one, don't overreact if he has his struggles. It's very common for tackles, especially guys with his level of rawness.
Yeah, I mean, the hand placement, consistently being wide, giving up his chest. I actually think his anchor ability is good. Like, I think he transitions very quickly to his anchor ability. I think he's really solidly built. Like, he's got a thick frame to him. He's strong in the lower half. Obviously a powerful dude up top. But, he's got to fix the hand placement thing, man. Like, if you consistently are wide with your hands like that, these power rushers in the NFL, as powerful as Isaiah McGuire is, and I like him a good amount, like, there's a lot of guys like Isaiah McGuire in the NFL. So if you give up your chest like that, they're going to be able to get that leverage on you and push you backwards. And you mentioned he's a waist bender too, because of how heavy or how over reliant he is on being like a two-hand puncher too. Would like to see a little bit more independent hand usage, but that's something Pat Meyer is going to work with him on. And I think if you can get him to quit bending at the waist a little bit, fix his hands, man. Like, there's reps, and I highlighted this in the video, but there's reps where his technique is awful, like almost a 180 from like how you would teach it from a tackle perspective, and he's still winning the reps because he's just so damn strong and so athletic. Like, he can recover. I will say this about the upside with Jones.
Is ridiculous.
The recovery ability. Yeah. That to me is a potential trump card for him. And when I look at the elite left tackles at the NFL level, how often can you get yourself out of compromising positions? Like, because I talk about this with corners all the time too. You're going to lose reps at the line of scrimmage. It's going to happen. The guys you're playing against are too good. And it's a reactive position, but can you get yourself out of compromising positions? And Jones is so athletic. He's so strong that he can get himself out of compromising positions. The one that I really think about is the Ohio State one, where, the edge rusher, slices inside and hits him with an outside spin move, one that he never has seen probably before in his playing career. And he's able to literally flip his hips and get back in front of the rusher and force him to climb back up to the pocket. Yeah. It's different. Like I said, it's very, and there's stuff like that on his tape in more than one game. So I'm optimistic about the ceiling, man. I'm praying like hell that they get it, because, it would be really fun to watch him grow, especially. And I think that's the thing too about the fan base. Like y'all mentioned, just being patient. And that's something that I've tried to hammer home as well. Just understand that this is a process, But I think that this process could be really cool to see, like just where he is in pass pro next year, which I think is going to surprise maybe some people. But man, like where he could potentially be, because this isn't a pick for 2023. Like I really don't if he starts, that's fine. You're taking Broderick Jones for what he's going to be in 2024, 2025. Like that to me is what matters. Him playing next year or how well he plays, like obviously I want him to play well, but even if he doesn't, I just care about, I want you to get to your ceiling. If it takes 2 to 3 years, that's perfectly fine. I want you to get near that ceiling with all of your athletic gifts. So
I think that
I'm definitely optimistic.
When it comes to the first round pick at 17 or even 14, like outside of like Brian Branch, was there really a guy on the board that like wasn't looked at as like, okay, well, this guy has the upside, but that's what we're talking about is the upside? Like there was nobody out there that was like, oh man, this guy's an instant superstar. You got to go get him. You know, it was maybe Nolan Smith a little bit. And I don't even think he was a superstar, but you kind of knew what you were getting in him. I think that when it came to the rest of them, you know, if it was Joey Porter Jr., I guess Brian Branch, but like even then you're kind of hoping that he turned into more than what he is right now. I just think that, you know, Broderick Jones is a guy that has so much potential, and that's what you were picking from, is who has the most potential sitting there. And, you know, just like we just went over. Freak athlete. Guy's got everything you're looking for. It's just a matter of can he turn into it. I wish that they had a veteran tackle to kind of teach him and work with him. I don't know, you know, how well Chooks is going to be in that role, but maybe Pat Meyer is enough. You know, I kind of feel like he should be, but it would have been nice to get a tackle. Let me ask this, because I saw his name a couple of times in this chat while I've been here. Do you think it rules out anything to do with the offensive line, whether it's Osiris Torrance or DeJuan Jones moving forward? You think we're done there?
I think it rules out tackle, not the interior, though, because I do think they are looking to upgrade on Mason Cole for the long term, maybe not so much the short term. And there is always the potential they might be looking at trading Kevin Dotson. It would be kind of ironic if they did take Osiris Torrance, who was the former Raging Cajun teammate of Kevin Dotson's, to and end up replacing him as the starter. But give him... It would be really interesting if that ended up happening, but I don't think they're done with the interior offensive line just yet. But offensive tackle, I think they're content where they are.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I'm not saying that interior offensive line is something they absolutely have to have in order for me to like their draft haul, but you know, they've just spent so much time and resources on center capable prospects, interior offensive linemen, even after adding 2 guys in free agency. I would definitely not rule it out. I wouldn't rule it out at 32.
No,
I'm just saying, like they could bet on the cornerback depth down the board, and you know, take an interior offensive lineman, and it wouldn't surprise me. You know, really one bit. I did want to get to this. Dave talking about he's 21 years old. I don't think Broderick needs to put on very much, if any, weight, and he doesn't really need to get stronger. Like the play strength,
dude, guy's massive.
The play strength for him is good.
Yes,
he's good. He's well built. Like there's nothing that he could do physically, in my opinion, that would really make me feel differently about him. He is or very close to, maybe if he was like an inch taller and like 5 pounds heavier, but he's very close to like the prototypical left tackle build for the modern NFL and what you would want. All of his issues in pass protection are technically related. Like that's why I wanted to highlight about like his recovery ability and how quickly he can transition to his anchor, especially when his hands are in the right spot. Is, you know, he can do all those things right now. He just puts himself in a lot of compromising positions, and he has some ugly losses because of how raw he is with his hands. You know, but all that stuff could be improved on. I'm not saying that it's an absolutely guaranteed thing that he, you know, improves on it, you know, but I definitely think that, you know, the concerns with him are not profile related at all.
The man's massive. Standing in front of me, I mean, I was just 4.5 feet away from him, and he could probably eat me for like lunch, maybe dinner. You know, like massive. And not like, you know, there's a lot of guys like, you know, you talk like Ramon Foster is a great example. Massive human being, but just like a, you know, kind of ball shaped a little bit. You know, Broderick Jones is a tank. Like,
Yes.
like you could see his pecs through his shirt, and you're like, you're an offensive lineman, man. You shouldn't have pecs. It's like
Built different.
like James Daniels has abs, and it blows my mind that he has abs. Like, I'm just like, dude, you're 300 pounds. How's this possible? I guarantee you, Broderick Jones is walking around with a 6-pack, guaranteed. And if he doesn't, he's, you know, a percentage of body fat away from rocking all 6 of those abs. He's massive, massive.
Yeah. Let's look at this. Who we taking at 32? Nick and I have kind of thrown options back and forth. No, I want to get your. I don't know how long you can stay on. We got about 30
I got
more
another 10
left
minutes.
of
We're
the
good.
stream. Okay. This guy Ronald's talking about who we taking at 32, guys. And each of you answer. I want your opinions. Nick and I've kind of already answered this, but I wanted to hear your perspective on it.
So me and you went back and forth on this earlier today, and it's tough. I will say this: as we were talking, I got another text saying that the Steelers are in talks, you know, about trading up, and things are starting to heat up. And just like you said, I think it's going to come right down to the wire. Draft's in an hour and a half, just about an hour now. I would say, like, within the next half hour, we know if they're going to pick or not pick. You know, we're at least a good idea. If they do stay there, man, I really wouldn't be surprised if they went Brian Branch over Joey Porter Jr. Like, I just wouldn't. Like, I get who Joey Porter is. I get everything. I get the connection. I get it all. I also get that we have talked about Kelee Ringo. We've talked about Tyreek Stevenson. We've talked about Julius Brents. We've talked about so many different corners in this draft process that the Steelers have loved, including Joey Porter Jr. But what stands out, what the difference is that Branch allows you to plug and play him in positions that you also need, and then you could go get one of those other guys at 49 or whatever to say, hey, you're going to learn to play on the outside. Branch is going to learn to play on the inside. He's going to play a little bit of safety. I just think that I think that right there at 32, like, I don't know, like you have the ability to switch it up instead of just going with an outside corner and kind of just like shutting off that position and just saying, okay, well, now we're going to attack interior offensive line, blah, blah, blah. I think if you went slot in Branch and then came back at 49, drafted, you know, whoever, or even if you traded for, you know, the 100th pick or moved back a couple of spots and ended up with Branch somehow, which I think that would be difficult. But if that did happen, you just have the opportunity. You have more places to kind of add those smaller positions of need later in the draft and then just absolutely suit up your cornerback room, which I think, you know, the whole time, the entire draft process, that's what we've talked about, is how they're looking to upgrade the cornerback room. Now you have the opportunity to not just get one, but get two. I think on the other side of that, though, if they went Joey Porter Jr., it wouldn't stop me if I was them from going back and grabbing another guy like Julius Brents or Kelee Ringo or Tyreek Stevenson and saying, Levi Wallace has one more year on his deal. Patrick Peterson's getting way too old to play corner after this season. We have 2 corners on the outside, fully developed, who have 3 more years on their deal, who are coming in here to be our starters. Like, that also sounds really intriguing to me.
Yeah, Nick, you've talked a lot about double dipping at quarterback as well, and that's definitely, you know, that's definitely how I feel as well. Like, I want them to take 2 cornerbacks. No, I already knows the picks. He's in a group chat with Con and Tomlin.
My phone is literally, as we're sitting here, my phone is just like ding, 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 ding. Like, I have a text message about every 6 seconds. So
nice.
If it does, I'm waiting. I'm trying to read them fast enough to give something out here before I have to run back in there.
I saw Dulac tweeted about 40 minutes ago that the feeling is that they are going to trade out of 32, which is they want to get like that extra 4th is what he was saying.
I think Jerry Dulac's the absolute legend here. But, you know, he also thought that they were going to trade up for Christian Gonzalez yesterday, and that didn't happen. You know, like, I think that's the possibility. I don't know how strong that feeling is.
What happened?
You
with
know,
that?
like, where did the real scoop on that one come in? I don't know. Maybe somebody should go to allsteelers.com and search the name Derek Bell.
Hashtag fake media.
But I think that it's certainly there. Like, they're going to try as hard as they possibly can. But I think, you know, there's a big pros and cons list as Mark Caboli drives by, him and his one leg. Um, you want the
Talk
real
about
inside scoop? I
legends.
can drag him. I think, whenever I make a decision, I put a pros and cons list, and I just put two things on a whiteboard, and I start drawing underneath them. And I think that that's what they're going to do. And they're going to say, these are the offers we have. These are the players we have. Who do we feel better about? Who could we get here? I don't know. I think it's going to come right down to the wire, but I'm not going to rule either side out because I think right now it's pretty much a 50-50 split.
Yeah, man.
Agreed.
Do you hear him?
If we stayed at 32, I think I would probably take Branch just because he's the highest rated player on my board, and I think it's very hard to get a nickel and a safety that does what he does at such a high level. And I think there are some press man corners I can get a little bit later that I feel really comfortable about. Maybe not guys, maybe not a guy like a Corey Trice because I think Pittsburgh's not as interested in them. But a guy like a Tyreek Stevenson, a Julius Brands, hell, even a Darius Rush. He has a little bit of similarities to Tariq Woolen, was drafted by Seattle last year. A little bit raw in terms of his technique, but just former wide receiver, converted cornerback with just outstanding ball skills and just fluidity.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I'm good with either. I'm trying not to be greedy. Branch is
got
the
a basketball over here.
Not like that one guy who suggested we should get both Porter and Branch in the.
Yeah, hey, I like it, man. Shoot for the stars. Dude.
I respect it.
That's a funny thing. Somebody saying Seahawks trade up for a quarterback ?
Possibly. I'm not going to rule it out.
Have they
Definitely
spent any
not gonna
time
rule
with
it out.
Levis? Do you know that, Nick? I don't know that.
They had the selfie with Levis. If they took
that
the
is
selfie.
true.
was
They
gonna say.
did.
Yeah,
Not the
I'll be
combine,
real.
the
I
selfie.
think they're looking
My God,
more at
Wesley.
like a Dorian Thompson.
See him in the background there?
A little bit later. Snap.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to trade up for Levis. I think they're going to wait for like a DTR from UCLA, Dorian Thompson Robinson, in terms of just like that potential in terms of the arm strength and the running ability, but not having to give up that huge capital. I think that's how Seattle feels right now.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm interested to see what happens. I'm curious on if Vegas is the team that keeps coming back to me. I know.
Vegas
I don't know
and
if
Tennessee
Ponies.
feels
I don't know
really
if
right
Ponies
to me.
got the source or the scoop or what, but Vegas to me is the team that I think it makes sense for them to move up, just because I think that with McDaniels, that's one of the few spots that I can really see Levis hitting his ceiling. And I like the fit in that offense. I think that, they probably would have considered Levis at 7 if it wasn't for a guy like Tyree Wilson falling because of, maybe some medical issues or things like that unexpectedly. But
can you imagine being Jimmy G right now if they move up to draft Levis? Like, how at some point you got to start feeling real bad for this guy because he just goes places, he wins football games. And then they just look for a replacement, like instantly. It's not. He didn't even get to play a game there yet. They're already drafting the guy that's going to play after him. It stinks. Like you got to feel bad for him to some degree.
Alex Smith.
Can we talk about this real quick? Is Antonio Brown going to the Ravens?
No,
Happened as we got off the pod earlier.
Dude, no. I think AB's he's just trying to yank people's chain right now because he posted a picture of him with a Ravens uniform on, and I think he's just fishing for attention at this point.
I think I'm not positive because I didn't want to go back through his billion tweets, but I'm almost positive he tweeted that same picture out last year, like right around this time, if not the exact day. Like
it wouldn't surprise me.
Pretty sure he was there.
He's a nut.
Yeah, AB's a great time. Maybe
he sees himself in Zay Flowers, who he trained with in the off season. Maybe.
Yeah. Wasn't that the original one? I think that's when the first picture came out. A couple of years ago when all that was going down. When he tweeted that out, and Hollywood Brown ended up in Baltimore, and that was like the big story. Is he was heading to Baltimore to work with his nephew or whatever, and it just.
Mike saying Vegas wants a tight end. Yeah, we didn't even talk about Michael Mayer still on the board. He could be a potential trade up option for a team
could be.
I'm not really sure.
Could be. Are you moving up to 32 though? Like, what are you giving up for a tight end? Especially with two of them still on the board.
And this class especially, that's just absolutely brimming
Yeah.
with talent.
Yeah,
Granted,
really,
I do
really
think
good class.
Granted, I think Michael Mayer's really similar to Heath Miller back in the day, so I wouldn't be shocked if he ends up being a very solid pro.
Did Meyer take? Was that who they compared him to? I think they compared what's his name last night to Heath Miller too. I'm almost positive that they're just going to compare every single tight end of this class to Heath Miller, and then Darnell Washington will be Matt Spaeth.
I think Dalton Kincaid is more like a Pat Freiermuth, and also he kind of. I think the Zach Ertz comp is a little interesting. I think he has some yards after the catch ability that's kind of similar to Kelsey in that regard. They're stylistically similar, but they're very different in terms of how their body is built. The reason I say Mayer and Heath Miller is they both are very similar blockers. They both got alligator arms. They're not the most amazing athletes, but they're smooth, not twitched.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just guys that can play inline.
I've seen Jason Witten for him too.
I don't like that comp. It's going back to his days in the twilight of his career, not the prime of his career.
Witten could barely move at the twilight of his career.
Exactly.
The twilight of Witten's career looked like Mark Bully trying to walk inside 10 minutes ago. It was exactly the same thing. It's exactly the same thing.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I will say this, that we did talk about a lot of positions, and I got to head out here in a second, but are we off the Darnell Washington train? Like, do we not think that's a possibility anymore at 49, maybe potentially a trade back option for him? Are we done with him?
I still think it's possible, but I would be surprised if it was 32, though.
I would be surprised if it was 32. Possibly a trade back.
Yeah. I mean, we could probably throw his name in the ring as far as like short list candidates if they were to trade back, especially if they trade back more than a couple picks, because, Branch and Porter Jr. and guys like that would probably be off the board by the time they pick, Keanu Benton. But Washington, man, like I said, when I was putting together all those clips this morning for the Broderick Jones video, my eyes kept gravitating back to Darnell Washington, just watching him in souls in the run game. I was just thinking to myself, when we hopped on here yesterday, I kind of said that I don't really think he has the type of upside as a receiver that maybe some other people see. But I also think that you wouldn't be complaining about taking him in the second round just because of your running back. Like every year would be a 1,500 rushing yard kind of dude. Because, what he can do in 12 personnel, you just run behind big number 0. And if his hand placement, you talk about Broderick Jones' hand placement, if Washington's hand placement as a run blocker gets better, I mean, you go from him just being like physically overpowering with his physical stature and, that length, Washington could be just an absolute road grader and a dominant blocker in that, Mercedes Lewis kind of Martellus Bennett type of mold for the long term. And I think that's awesome because, it can let Pat Freiermuth focus on being more of a receiver, being that slot receiver for the Steelers. And not worry too much about, having to block in line, which is really not his strength. So
that's what I'm saying. I think you need another. I'm not saying you need one, but I think it's a higher priority than you'd think to get Kenny another tight end and just like pair Pat Freiermuth with somebody, especially in today's NFL and the amount of 12 and 13 personnel that the Steelers like to run. I think it's an option there. I think that if they had the opportunity and they traded back, he might be on that list, just like you said, that short list of, well, he'll be here and we feel comfortable with that because that we'll head out. I almost tossed Terry Stevenson's name out here because Ike Taylor was walking by and I thought, maybe we'll get a reaction, see what's up. But you can only go so far after Kaboli bounces the basketball behind you. With that, guys, I'm heading out of here. I appreciate you and the show. Well, enjoy your time. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And next time, I'll have a better way to jump in here somehow. So appreciate you, boys.
Peace, brother.
Peace, Noah.
Appreciate Noah for joining us. We're gonna stream for a couple more minutes here. So if you guys have any more questions that you guys would like our answers to, please drop those in the chat. Appreciate all of you guys jumping on here with us. Just make sure that you like the video. Make sure you subscribe to both channels, All Steelers Talk and Steelers DB. Do we have a Zach Smith re-entry to the stream?
Ooh.
Hold on. This man is back.
I literally I was like, I wonder if they're still even going right now.
Bro, come on now. Y'all know, you know what it is, bro. You know
Bro,
what it
Derek
is.
was
It's
up
grind
last
season.
Derek was up
I was
last
streaming
night.
at 1:30 in the morning.
I was like, oh, I should tune in. Let's see if Derek's still streaming. He was still going strong, man. I was like, good lord.
Now I'm ready though. I had Permanis just now.
Oh, this man's a Yinzer to a T. Uh-oh. Hold on. Jim Beam Vanilla.
So we're
Smitty's
ready.
about to get lit up.
There will be no Cowboy, I don't think, tonight, but Mid Kuiper might still make some appearances here.
Yeah. Hey,
it just comes out of me sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, hey, and by the way, I'm going to plug this again to the show. I mean, Smitty and his crew over at Around the 412 are doing a live stream as well. So make sure you follow him on Twitter. Make sure you get in on that live stream if you guys want some more content.
And we're giving away a jersey tonight.
And giving away a jersey. Y'all can't miss that. So everybody, after y'all hop off here, y'all go hang out with those fellas. I'll be in the chat over there as well, like I was last night, dropping
Gave
some
away tickets last night, dude. So
yeah. I mean, you guys are missing out. Tickets, a jersey. I mean, what else? I mean, this big baller over here, Smitty, man. He got all the money apparently. Throw something my way, man. Save some for the rest of us, you know.
All you need is a few more of those super chats from whoever that was that dropped.
Yeah, we did. We have been getting a couple of super chats, man. Yeah, the chat's been showing some love for sure. What y'all want to talk about? I'm seeing somebody saying anybody else lose the feed. I don't think so. Downtown Permanis.
Well, I want you to know.
Where was that from? Zach Permanis.
Lose the feed from what? Huh?
Wait, hold on. I'll check the stream right now. Just make sure it's going good.
I think it's good. Hey, drop us an emoji in the chat if we're still up and running. I just want to make sure everything's good on your end.
We're still good.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, so what are we thinking here for round two?
Well, here's the thing. What I was just saying. I just started running a simulation of round two. The Steelers stuck at pick 32. They went with wide receiver Josh Downs.
No.
Here's the thing about Downs. I actually liked Downs as a fit for the Steelers in round 2.
He likes the Steelers.
But he is repetitive to Calvin Austin. Like, just they are different players. Yeah. Like, Calvin Austin's more speed. Downs is like I really like Downs' ability against zone coverage. And, you know, he's one mixtape route runner. So I like that too. He plays a lot bigger than his size. There's things to like about Josh Downs. And I could definitely, like, if the Steelers didn't bring in Allen Robinson or they didn't have Calvin Austin already on the roster, you could get me on board with Josh Downs here in the next, you know, in a trade down scenario where you trade down to 38 or 40. You could get me on board with that. Man, like I said last night, I just really like the Steelers' weapons, man.
Same.
Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, Pat Freiermuth, that's a solid 1, 2, 3. And then you add a guy like Allen Robinson. I really thought before I watched Allen Robinson's film, I kind of thought that Allen Robinson was washed. And then when I went to do some cut-ups for him for the channel, I completely did a 180 there. I think he can still play. And if he's your number 4 option, dude, I'm in. I think that's more than enough for what, you know, Kenny Pickett needs. And I don't really feel the need to add a receiver here. I think that, I don't know how you guys feel about this. I think that the rest of this draft, especially tonight, is going to be defensive heavy. Like, I really think that they are going to hammer the defensive side of the ball. What do you think about that, Zach?
Yeah. I mean, I guess the one caveat potentially is tight end, right? That we're thinking about maybe happens, but
or interior offensive lineman, but
yeah. Okay, true. Actually, what I'm doing right now, I just want to see how this turns out. So I said I restarted this just to see what happens here. Joe Tippmann was the pick at 32 instead, but we're gonna do this 7 rounds and see how this turns out. Anyways, I do agree that we're gonna see a lot of. I mean, we think we're getting a corner. We think we're going to get an off-ball linebacker at some point. You could see an edge depth piece or like a guy that could do some of both that, like a Herbig. So yeah, I would expect defense heavy here on night 2.
Nick, instant no.
Yeah, that was Josh Downs no.
It would have just been so repetitive with Calvin Austin even if like they didn't sign Allen Robinson. I'm the biggest Calvin Austin fan out there, man. I believe in his ability. I think he's a guy that like they didn't need to secure they didn't need to like completely rely on him, which is why bringing in Allen Robinson made so much sense because they showed faith in him at the same time while keeping a veteran around to keep depth in the room. That's one of the biggest things I liked about that move.
This dude Wesley said better than Keon White.
Yeah.
At this point, you guys are treating Keon White like I was treating Lucas Van Ness. I mean, we are going to hopefully nobody cuts any of these clips up about Keon White after they take him at 32.
Oh God,
we're
please
gonna be getting drug on the TL on Twitter. It's gonna be funny.
Schefter said he's hearing a lot of quarterback talk for the Lions.
Okay, so
somebody
mentioning I'm good with moving back to the Lions spot.
Like not even taking a quarterback in this class.
Where's the Lions spot again? I'm trying to remember.
Hold on. 34, right?
Oh, that'd be perfect. I would love that.
Yeah, because that's the thing. That's how I talked about with getting, like if you could move back to Detroit, that's only 2 spots. Say in theory, if Detroit did take a quarterback, if they were in and it wasn't Trey Lance, if it was Levis or something like that, trading back with them is perfectly fine because then you're only moving back 2 spots and you're still going to get one of Porter, Branch, or Benton. Like you're guaranteed that one of them is going to be there, and I'm down for that. And you could probably get what's that trade capital like?
And 32 if they're coming up for that it's really only 33 in between you. So
so
2 of those 3 are going to be there.
Yeah.
I'm trying to look and see what they have. It would give them a 152 probably, moving back just those 2 spots, and maybe you could squeeze out another later pick, 6th or 7th rounder, but that would give them a pick in between that nasty.
I mean, you got to sell them on the phone like, hey,
yeah,
we got Minnesota who's in your division also trying to move up.
Vegas.
Exactly. But just looking at it from like their perspective, Will Levis with the Lions would make a lot of sense considering that Goff is on an expiring deal. They need maybe a bit more high potential of a quarterback. And while I'm not the biggest Levis fan at this point in the draft, it makes a lot of sense for them.
This is where he could potentially pay this off.
Exactly. This is a good spot for him to go.
Yeah, and I also like the idea about Detroit looking for a higher ceiling player. That's definitely the move. Their offense is already a well-oiled machine. They've got the weapons, the offensive line's intact. And I do think we talk a lot about landing spots for rookie quarterbacks, right? Like this would be a really good landing spot for Will Levis. Like like Vegas from a schematic and coaching infrastructure, just because I think he fits that offense really well. Detroit, kind of same thing, but they're just so well-rounded on offense right now without any glaring weaknesses. I like the weapons that they've got. Now they have 4 running backs. Apparently they're taking Jahmyr Gibbs early in the 1st round.
I think they're also trying to trade for Derrick Henry.
Yeah. Yeah. They may inquire about Najee Harris for all we know. But yeah, and the offensive line's fantastic over there. So this is a good landing spot for a young quarterback, whether that be Levis or Trey Lance or something like that. I would 100%.
Speaking of the Lions,
be there.
Which one do you think was more of the head scratcher, Gibbs or Campbell?
I liked the Campbell pick because I just think it's a better value. Campbell's higher on my board. I think linebacker, notoriously, the NFL has picked the wrong linebackers at this spot.
They got it right this year.
They picked the right one in my opinion. Jack Campbell's linebacker 1. He's one of the safer players in this class. I like Jahmyr Gibbs, but at 12,
and they said they would have taken him at 6.
No,
I do not believe that.
I don't
believe that.
I believe they got sniped on Devin Witherspoon, and then they got sniped on Bijan unexpectedly.
We got to talk about this though, because it came out. I don't know if you saw that from Dane Brugler about Gibbs with the Jets.
I think I saw that. I don't think that's a real report. I think their GM is trying to sell.
Because I was gonna say, man, that's kind of scary for Brees's recovery. If that's the case. Yeah.
No, you make a good point there. But what's also interesting, Joe Douglas is very close with Todd McShay, and he's, Todd McShay's talked constantly about how much the Jets like Broderick Jones, and we knew how much that connection was there.
Mhm.
So someone's lying.
This
And
Lions
I
season.
think it's the Lions who are lying here.
Yeah.
Not to
Like I
go
said
with a
last
bad
night,
pun here.
I liked Jahmyr Gibbs. He had an early second round grade from me. Like Jack Campbell, he was in that same kind of mid second round. He was my linebacker 1 in a bad linebacker class, admittedly.
Mhm.
I just will continue to go back to the fact that the Lions had the 6th overall pick, the 18th overall pick, and just I think if you're a Lions fan and you come away with those 2 guys as your haul on night 1 of this NFL draft, which is a draft without a ton of star talent up top, but I think that I would have expected a lot more.
I would have
I like the
traded up for
players.
Stroud.
They got 2 solid players.
What is this
I just-
comment, dude? Look at
I
this
just don't think
comment
it's good
from
value.
Shaman05 line.
Steelers be in the bed. We're not cussing on this channel. Uh, everyone's sliding in their DMs
I mean, that's
on
an analogy
Instagram.
for sure.
Omar Khan leaving them on red. Oh man, yeah. Hey,
Is
by
he
the
going
way,
to though? Is he leaving them on red?
people keep saying this. Like, did the Steelers have to move up to 14 to get Broderick Jones? Yes.
Yes.
The Jets were taking Broderick Jones.
Yeah.
Like there was a lot of smoke about that pick being a fit. The Jets, man, they had a ton of offensive line injuries last year. You know, the Mekhi Becton thing hasn't worked out. Jones was going to be their guy.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And that's why, like, that. So, say that Brugler putting that out there, like, connect all the dots, that was the truth. So, what he was saying was what really? Like, Gibbs was the first guy, Broderick was the second option, and they got neither. So, it ended up being Will McDonald.
I think
Like, say that is true.
Yeah.
That's some the media is giving me a bad grade. I need to put some stuff out there.
Yeah,
stuff, I don't think anyone really loved the Will McDonald selection, especially because when you just look at it full circle, full context, them swapping picks with Aaron Rodgers, you know, the deal to move backwards behind the Pats, and then you know the Steelers are able to trade up with the Pats to snipe Broderick Jones for them. It's tough. I mean, it's tough. I'm sure that the Jets are not happy with how the draft played out for them in the first round.
What's weird is I actually did like the Will McDonald pick, even though I like Nolan Smith more. Like, Will McDonald was my edge 3. After Will McDonald, I thought there was a teardrop after that, because I think Will McDonald offers so much more as a pass rusher from a wide 9. So despite the Jets kind of not feeling great about how they how the picks went, I think it could have been a lot worse for them.
That fan base just doesn't know ball. That's the thing.
Hey man, they saw
those Tampa fans with the Elijah Cansey pick that they were all booing in that bar.
Elijah Cansey's interesting because I actually think he might be a better edge rusher than an interior defensive lineman in terms of how he handles the run, but is NFL ready as a pass rusher as it gets in this class.
Here's the thing with Tampa. Like, why are they? I mean, I get that Cansey has question marks about if he's ever going to be able to, carry a 50 to 75% snap count because of, him not being a great run defender. But how impactful he's going to be as a pass rusher is going to be immediate. I think he's going to have an immediate impact as a pass rusher. And the only reason that I can really get on board with it is because Tampa has no one to rush the passer. Like, one of their best pass rushers, maybe their best pass rusher last season, was Devin White. He might not be on the team next year, and he's an inside linebacker. Like, they needed to get faster up front. They needed to get a go-to pass rusher that can win in one-on-one situations. Cansey at least fits a need there. Like, I don't know why people, I mean, I get that, you can have concerns about Cansey, but I also think that you have to look at it kind of maybe glass half full and be really excited about the potential that he could add as a pass rusher. I
appreciate, though, that you said he's not a great run defender. That was very kind of you.
Okay, so here's the deal with Cansey. Okay, he will be able to make some plays just because of how athletic he is and how quick his first step is. Here's the thing, though, because he's so compactly built without length, if offensive linemen get their hands on him, the rep's over. like he's not getting off the block. And because he doesn't have a ton of sand in his pants, he's going to get vertically displaced easily. So that is, he's not going to be a good run defender. I would be absolutely blown away if he was ever an NFL average run defender for a defensive lineman. However, guys with his hand usage, his toolkit as a pass rusher, how explosive he is, the first step,
bend,
the counters. I want to stress that aspect of his game. This dude has counters on counters on counters,
yes.
can bend through contact. Like Nick said, there may be some alignment or positional versatility too, where you can align him wherever you want on the front on passing downs, especially. I don't know. I'm interested to see. Cansey's a guy who could change the way we evaluate defensive linemen. I really do believe that. Derek, I just made sure to let all my followers know that you're shotgunning a 4 Loco on camera if Brian Branch becomes
I
a
didn't know
Steeler.
about this.
That's an interesting development for me. I
Oh,
don't
man.
drink, so shotgunning a 4 Loco would
Me
probably
either.
kill me at this point.
Yeah.
17-year-old me would be very proud of myself at 29 if I could still shotgun a 4 Loco. That would be interesting, man. I don't know that I'm going to be able to pay off that bet for you. We might have to figure out a different way to celebrate Brian Branch as a Steeler than be shotgunning a 4 Loco. But we can get wild. Vanilla Jim Bean. I told my buddy last night, I had people over for the draft like I do every year. I got some people coming over tonight as soon as the stream ends. And I told him I'd take a shot with him if the board fell a certain way. Silver Patron. This man Smitty, this is how he's giving away all these
How
jerseys.
cool is this, though? How cool is this?
That's fire.
This case. Yeah.
This man Smitty got a bunch of money, man. I don't you can't hide it, I guess. You can't hide money. That's what they say. He says Smitty got the goods there. Spot on with Kansas changing the NFL. It could go one of two ways. I just think he's a good enough pass rusher to where, I had him in the 30s on my big board. I am fascinated to see how his NFL career plays out because I wouldn't be the one. If I was an NFL GM, I probably wouldn't want to, unless I knew I had good job security, I probably wouldn't take him as early as 19. But I absolutely understand the rationale behind Tampa doing it because they need pass rushers, and I think he's the best pass rusher in the class, even if he's a not so good run defender.
Yeah, and unlike Ed Oliver, who is looking like could be out of Buffalo at some point, there's a lot. He's on the hot seat a little bit there. Kancey is that polished pass rusher coming out of college, unlike Oliver, who was a better run defender than he was a pass rusher, and very much relied on his bull rush and first step. But Kancey, he's just NFL ready with his hand usage. The counters, you mentioned it. But I love his plan of attack because he consistently accounts for doubles and chips. I've seen him swim over like guards and then immediately bull rush the running back back into the quarterback. And I'm just like, God, this is the close. Like, obviously, I don't condone the Aaron Donald comps, but like those types of reps are like Aaron Donald.
Sure,
is how I feel.
All right, here's the deal. We're gonna answer this question. Branch, Joey Porter Jr. most talked about at 32 if they stay, but who are other names you like? I mean, we've thrown out a ton of names, man. Like, Keanu Benton wouldn't surprise us if John Michael Schmitz was there, Steve Avila, Tyreek Stevenson, Kelee Ringo, guys like that. A lot of guys that they've been linked to still particularly on the board. I don't know if you guys want to throw any other like names we haven't mentioned into the mix here before I want to get Nick's second round prediction. Zach, I'll let you kind of throw in if you. I mean, I
already said when I dropped my mic and thought I wasn't going to be back on here. I kind of said what I kind of mapped out my plan for night 2. So
yeah, Nick, what you got?
So in terms of a guy that we might not expect, that I actually could kind of see because Grady Brown was at the pro day and he worked him out. We found this out kind of late in the process. Is DJ Turner from Michigan, and I like him.
Hold on, time out. Run that back for me. I did not know this. Hold on, time out. What?
Yeah, no, Grady Brown. This was I didn't know about this for a while because Alex Casora of CR Depot, he posted a screenshot of Grady Brown at the pro day, and it was working out DJ Turner. So
okay,
yeah,
I like that. Turner's number 49 on my big board. So if that was, and that's a good way. We've talked about double dipping at corner.
Yeah.
Turner's a guy that I think it's a lot of teams are going to kick inside to the slot because of his size. But man, that would be I'm about some DJ Turner. That
Turner's
dude
in
can
that tier with
absolutely fly.
Yeah, his
Great
recovery speed
athlete.
is insane. I think his press man ability is extremely undersold in terms of, people will look at his length, but I think he has really good hand placement, really good play strength. Thing I want to fix with him, just get him off his heels. He's a little bit too far on his heels in his pedal a
Mhm.
little too often, which keeps him off balance. He's in that tier with Cam Smith and Clark Phillips for me. It's the tier after Joey Porter, and then you have, guys like in the next tier who are Kelee Ringo, Corey Trice, those types of guys.
Mm.
In terms of who I think the prediction's going to be, oh man, I'm going to say they trade down and they take Porter, because I think maybe there's some teams like Zach said, they haven't shown as much interest in Porter as we might think. So I think it's very possible they could get their cake and eat it too.
That would be freaking wild.
My name to throw. I mean, we've already kind of thrown his name out there, but my be prepared in case this happens name is Drew Sanders.
That'd be interesting because he actually does a lot of the things like we talked about this on the pod the other day with Nolan Smith about the plan of him is almost like similar to how the Cowboys deployed Micah Parsons.
Yep.
You could see some of that with Drew Sanders. Granted, I
Mhm.
don't think they are nearly comparable as athletes, but Drew Sanders very good with his hands as a pass rusher, bendier than you think, and he grew kind of fast at linebacker. Really, the thing I'm looking at out of him is the tackling. It's just terrible. He just takes some of the worst angles. His play strength is really questionable at times because he plays with a high pad level as well. There's just those things I feel like are fixable, but they would be maddening to deal with early on.
Yeah, one of the things I mentioned with Sanders, like you talked about him growing as an off-ball linebacker, only playing that position 1 year. I actually think his eyes are a little bit better than you'd expect for a guy that's relatively new to the position. I mean, eyes for an inside linebacker are everything, and I think that he does show some really good flashes of some good processing in the box. I would just say, he is a good blitzer. I definitely think he offers a little bit of pass rushing upside, but like you said, man, like consistently letting guys run through him. I mean, arm tackles, bad angles. He had a 20% missed tackle rate. That's an outrageous number. And that's something that is going to drive coaches crazy, especially early on, if that's, how he's going to play as a rookie, or it's going to be tough for him to get on the field in that regard. We've already mentioned a lot of names. I think, I keep coming back to Keon White as the Steeler. Nick Herbig, we talked about him. I talked about all the corners. I mean, I think we covered pretty much every base that we can possibly cover. So unless you guys have anything, I'm going to try to close us out here a little bit.
I want to mention one
Go
thing,
ahead.
and it's just as I'm looking at this class, and maybe I just haven't paid enough attention to classes previously, but just on the surface, it seems like this class, more than any others, there's just so many outlier guys, especially at the top of the
100%.
group.
Oh yeah,
too. Obviously, you have Bryce at the top of the quarterback group. A guy like Emmanuel Forbes at and on both sides of it, right? Even I mentioned when we were talking about Tippmann, he's kind of an outlier at the center because of how tall he is. So, I just want to get your perspective on this seeming just a huge outlier class.
No, there's a ton of small slot receivers. There's a ton of small corners. You've got freakazoids like Darnell Washington that we just don't ever really see on the other side of that spectrum.
DeJuan Jones off at the
DeJuan Jones. I even think Darnell Wright's kind of a unique bit. You don't see guys that heavy come in every year. You mentioned Bryce Young. That was my one-liner for Bryce Young on my big board was this dude could potentially change the way that we view the quarterback position, with his ability to create, magician in the pocket, some of the ways that he wins just in terms of his processing. It could completely change the way we look at that stuff. So really interesting to look at. No, I completely agree with your assessment with the outliers, man. And that's the thing with the outliers. you got to choose who to bet on. Like they're outliers for a reason.
Mhm.
They don't hit at a high rate. So
Even like a really weird one. People mentioned like Osiris Torrance,
huge,
the way he
350
jumped.
pounds.
Yeah, and like, well, so he obviously didn't jump well either. But like, so if he is a good NFL player, he'll be like the first one at his weight that didn't jump well to actually be a good NFL player or something like that. Yeah, it's just it's like across the board. You can find so many guys that would be an outlier.
Yeah, completely agree. Before we get out of here, guys, just appreciate everybody jumping on to the stream.
I think Julie was mainly directing that at me, so thank you.
Definitely. Julie Smitty appreciates it. Here's the deal. Before y'all jump off here, please make sure you like the video. Make sure you subscribe to both channels, youtube.com/allsteelerstalk and youtube.com/Steelers_DB. Zach Smith, y'all hop over to his channel. He's about to get it popping with a live NFL draft stream. Y'all can go holler at him. He's giving away another jersey because he's rich and has a absolute ton of money and wants to give it away. Y'all go holler at him.
See that NFL Blitz machine, bro?
NFL Blitz fire. So I appreciate you guys jumping on. If y'all are interested in it, I may be down because I have one more monster in my fridge. I may be down to do a post-draft stream tonight after round 3 wraps up. If y'all are down, we'll see how this night goes. If it goes well for the Steelers, I'll be even more jacked up, and I may be willing to do that. And maybe I can convince someone to jump on there with me at 1:30 in the morning like we did last night. So
you might get me this time.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens with that. I'll keep you guys posted on Twitter about the plans for after. Somebody's asking, post a link to the channel. I'm guessing, are you talking about my channel? Or I'm assuming
probably where we're to be live streaming, I'm guessing.
Oh, gotcha. Here, yeah, I'll post that in the chat real quick. Actually, Zach, can you post that real quick? I'm sure you've got the link.
I can't comment from here, so I have to do it from.
Oh, okay. Hold on, I can get it. Yeah, I'll post the link for you guys, and then I will keep you guys updated on what we're gonna do going forward. Is it youtube.com/around the412 around the 412?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's what it is, guys. You guys hop over there. Live draft show, giving away a jersey. That's gonna be awesome. I will be in the chat, so I'll see you guys over there. I'm gonna be popping in and out of there for sure. No sleep gang. Hell yeah, the DB, the grind don't stop. Grind don't stop, man. No sleep for the wicked. It's draft weekend. We got to get it popping. Again, Nick, Zach, appreciate you guys hopping on here with me.
Appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
Jake, 130's easy work. Hey, man, don't be saying that.
He's gonna be with me. So
okay, I'm about to say, don't be saying that unless you're trying to pull up. Unless you try to pull up, man. Don't try to talk about stuff that you can't cash. I'm really excited about it, guys. I will talk to you guys, throughout the draft, and then potentially maybe even after. We'll see what happens. But appreciate you guys. Peace.
Peace.